Welcome to Drive Tomorrow, a very special episode of Drive TV where we're going to take a close look at the future of technology in cars, specifically family-friendly for both day-to-day stuff and the longer road trip. There is a hell of a lot of technology now in cars, a lot of important things to break down. We've got 4 key areas we're looking at, right?
That's right. Let's start with something really important, Trent, and that is value for money. With the cost of living currently skyrocketing, there's never been more importance on affordability. So we've got all different price ranges here behind us. We're also going to take a look at another important factor when you're buying a new car, and that is safety, evolving technology. You mentioned road trips, so we want to look at the comfort of the cabins in these cars, and also a time where there are plenty of options for powertrain. So we've got everything here from a mild hybrid all the way through to an electric vehicle.
And if you look at powertrains specifically, it's never been harder to decide which sort of vehicle you're going to buy because there's never been as much on offer. A lot of focus on electric, of course, but there's a lot of other powertrains out there as well, so we'll break that down. And when we're talking about driving tomorrow, guys either side of us, they're actually going to be driving tomorrow because we're getting old. I don't know if you've noticed that. They're young, they're the next generation of drivers. So we're going to walk them through some of the technology, get some of their thoughts as well, what they think about where these cars are and where they're going. As I said, very special episode of Drive TV. It's called Drive Tomorrow. Nate, Holly, let's get into it.
The views are out of this world.
This thing is unbelievable. It sounds incredible.
Golly gee, everybody, look at that.
So Nate, a pretty good looking garage. We've got everything here, cars from all parts of the world. We've got mainstays, challengers, and there's pretty much something here for everyone because we've got some of the most affordable SUVs in the market on Australia right now. We've got some mid-range cars and then some premium cars as well. I already know which ones have caught my eye. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think definitely the Maserati stood out to me. Obviously the looks and the sound was awesome.
It's very stylish. That sound comes from the 3-litre twin-turbo V6, which comes out of the MC20. So you've got a supercar engine in this car, but very stylish, premium features. You can drive it now on your Ls, but you won't be able to drive it in a couple of years on your Ps, so enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
You can drive this, though. Have you seen these on the road before?
Yeah, I've seen a fair bit. Obviously, it's gotten a bit more popular lately, I've noticed.
Yeah, you're right. So Mahindra is here back in 2009, but mainly focused in rural areas because their background's actually tractors. So you're going to see a lot more from Mahindra, especially over the next couple of years as they continue their onslaught. Very affordable, packed with features. Do you want to have a look at some of the others? Okay, how about this? This is the Toyota Kluger. This one's actually a hybrid. I'm not sure if you've driven a hybrid yet.
No, I haven't. Do they drive much different to a normal car?
Not really. It's more an electric car, which we'll get into very shortly. I'm sure you'll get a chance to drive one this week. Now, a Toyota, very trusted brand, very reliable. This car has actually won our Drive Car of the Year large SUV for 2 years running, and there's many reasons why. It is a really great car. But I've seen something that I know caught your eye earlier. It's hard to not be drawn to this car, the Hyundai Palisade, all blacked out. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I love the black. Looks like something the FBI would drive.
You know what? It was actually originally this design from America, so now they've come here with the same badge from America, which is the calligraphy. This is the calligraphy black ink, so you get all those blacked out features. And it just looks really tough, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Would you drive something like this?
Yeah, definitely. It would be a dream.
I actually would too, because I know that this is a family car, but I feel like that has a sub-segment for this car. And that is, you know, if you want something that's packed with features, more affordable, but looks fancy, it works.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go to the next. Another premium brand. I like this car. I've always liked the Mercedes-Benz, the GLC. What do you think, fan?
Yeah, I really like the Mercedes. Obviously, I go for the Formula 1 team, so yeah.
Oh no, we've got a Lewis Hamilton fan in the room. German engineering. You know, you can't go wrong with a car like this. Premium standard features as well and beautiful to drive.
Don't the Germans make a lot of cars?
They do. You got your Audis, your Volkswagens, your BMWs, and of course your beautiful Mercedes-Benz. How about the Lexus NX? Do you know much about the Lexus brand?
I don't know too much about the Lexus. I know it looks good and it looks a bit similar to the Toyotas.
Well, there you go, the luxury arm of Toyota. What do you think about these grills? Just seem to get bigger and bigger. What do you think about this look?
Yeah, it looks awesome. Kind of looks like some jet engines that I've noticed.
You would notice that because he's actually a pilot when he's not hanging out with us talking cars. I mentioned Korean cars being cool and electric cars a bit earlier. Well, this is a very cool Korean car. This is a Kia EV6, their first actually fully ground up electric vehicle. I think I could see you in this.
Yeah, definitely. I love the front end, the shape of it, and also the inside. It's nice and spacious.
Yeah, we're going to check that out later, but there's actually a performance car of this as well. It's the fastest car from the brand, so hopefully you get to drive that soon.
Yeah, I've actually been for a ride on one of these before, and the performance is great. As soon as you put the foot down, it feels like you're taking off an airplane.
That is the beauty about an electric car. The acceleration is instant. I'm going to try very hard to get you behind the wheel of one of these this week.
Drive tomorrow. It's vitally important information. Doesn't matter what sort of car you're buying, doesn't matter who you're buying it for, and everything you need to know, not just about the cars that are behind us now, but about everything that we road test at Drive. It's over at drive.com.au. Don't forget, there's a hell of a lot of research that you need to be doing when you're buying a new car. That's what Drive Tomorrow is about. It's about the next generation of vehicles and all of the technology that comes with it. Everything you need to know, not just about these vehicles that we're talking about here, but everything else that we road test at Drive. It's over at drive.com.au. Okay, Holly, it's the time you've been waiting for, and my challenge here is to explain some things without going too deep and without putting you to sleep. We're going to talk about powertrains. What we're going to start with, first of all, is a diesel engine. We're looking here at an Isuzu. This is a favourite for Australians when they're towing and they're going off-road. What's really interesting is when we get to the electric car later on, it's going to look incredibly different under here to this, because this is, I guess in modern terms, it's still pretty rudimentary. You can see a radiator, you can see a fan, you can see where the engine is, you can see pipes and cables and all sorts of mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
That changes with electric vehicles.
Do normally all diesel engines have this layout, or is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's how long is a piece of string, because with any car, regardless of what it is that's powering it, you could potentially have the engine in the front, in the middle, in the back.
Yeah.
It could be front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive. On to the next one. Next up, it's petrol engines. Okay, Holly, what you've got here under the bonnet of this particular vehicle is the type of engine that hundreds of thousands of Australians are using to get around town every day. This is a Chery Tiggo, new car to the Australian market. This is a reasonably sized SUV, but the engine is quite compact. So that 1.6, that means it's 1.6 litres. There's a turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder engine, but 1.6 litres is actually quite small.
Oh. Would you say petrol's more common than diesel these days?
It's more common around town. I think when you get out into the country areas, you see a lot more people driving something like the Isuzu with a diesel engine because they're in remote areas. But if you're running around town, an engine like this in a vehicle like the Tiggo uses as little as 7 litres per 100. That's not much fuel. That's quite fuel efficient for the job that it's doing when you think that this would easily work as a family SUV. Now, of course, the Gazelle's not turbo and this is, but this is all about modern efficiency, because that Gazelle is still reasonably efficient, but that's largely down to the fact that it's quite light, it's quite a small car, so it's not going to use as much fuel. But this, being a family-focused SUV with a 1.6 litre engine still using as little as 7 litres per 100, that's impressive.
So smaller engines are just becoming more efficient?
Becoming much more efficient and therefore much more common. The next powertrain we're going to talk about, Holly, is a really, really up-to-date one, I guess, and one that's made a big difference for a lot of Australian buyers. On one side of the argument, there's mild hybrid, and on the other side of the argument, there's a regular hybrid. And even though the word hybrid is in both, they're not quite the same.
So what exactly is a hybrid?
That's a good question. It's a really good question, and I think a lot of Australians probably still don't know. Personally, I think mild hybrids you need to think of as just a regular vehicle and don't really envelope them in with regular hybrids, because a mild hybrid is a particular type of electric system. The way that it works is it assists in terms of performance and efficiency, but the electric system doesn't drive the car specifically. So that's how a mild hybrid works. It's a little bit more complex than that, but that's the basics. A hybrid, and when most Australians think of a hybrid, they're thinking of Toyota. It's the brand that's popularised them in Australia. The reason that they make so much sense is because you don't have to change anything about the way that you drive. You don't plug it in, you don't charge it, you don't change the way you drive or your behaviour. When the fuel gauge gets low, you go to a service station, you top it up with petrol, in the case of the Kluger, and you're good to go again. But what it does do, if you came to me and said, my parents spend $100 a week on fuel and they had a large SUV like this, they would automatically, overnight, go to spending about 50 or 60 bucks a week on fuel. So it makes a big difference.
So are hybrids quite popular in Australia?
I got a good one for you on that. I reckon most Aussies, and in fact most people around the world, probably don't even realise that they've actually been in a hybrid. Because if you've gone for a drive in a taxi in Australia in the last 2-3 years, chances are you're in a hybrid, same overseas. So yes, they're popular in a lot of segments. Say you're talking about a Camry, that's a large sedan. Australian private buyers don't really buy large sedans anymore, but if you've been in a Camry, taxi, or an Uber, it's probably a hybrid. Also though, Australians are buying hybrids in segments like medium and large SUV, so RAV4 and Kluger are perfect examples, and overwhelmingly, yeah, Australians love hybrids. Okay, Holly, here we are, the height of technological advancement. I know you're looking this and your mind is blown by how advanced this car is. Press pause. It was in 1984 when it was new. Now, I know you're going to ask me a whole bunch of questions in a minute, but just relating this back to the Tiggo, what's really interesting is how far engineering has come. But the point you made before when we looked at the Tiggo is the relevant one. Small car, compact, not very big, 2-litre engine. It's not turbo, but the Tiggo's got a 1.6. So that's where things have changed. Old cars had quite small fuel tanks. So when you drive one now, you find yourself stopping, even if they're efficient, you're stopping quite regularly to top up with fuel because the actual tank itself is quite small.
Yeah, okay. And I'm
Oh, here we go. This is what I've been dreaming. Yeah.
I'm seeing on the door there's a little turny thing.
Yeah, what are they? Yes. They're electric windows. So what you do is, as you're winding them, you just go zzz, and then the window drops down.
You have to make them electric.
But I know you're trying not to be nasty. That was very diplomatic the way you asked that. Can you say anything nice about it?
I like the colour.
Okay, going from talking about my old Nissan to talking about this is going from the sublime to the ridiculous, depending on which way you look at it. This is a Lexus plug-in hybrid, and it's different to the hybrids we spoke about before.
Yeah, so is a plug-in hybrid half regular and half electric?
You know what? That's actually not a bad way of looking at it, but a plug-in hybrid is different again, and I think it's the real step towards full electrification. Plug-in hybrids probably don't get the credit they deserve in Australia, and I'll tell you why. They're generally a little bit more expensive, right, than a regular hybrid, but there's a bit of reason for that because these combine full electrification with a regular petrol or diesel engine, but in this case petrol. Because what this does is you plug it in at night, at home, in your garage, in your carport, whatever, and you charge it, and then it has a certain electric range. Now, the best of them now are up around 80 kilometres. What it will do is it will drive you the next day, once it's fully charged, up close to that range without using any petrol at all. And the reason I say that makes a lot of sense for Aussies is the average Aussie, like your parents, their commute to and from work is probably about 20 to 30 Ks each way at the most. So most Australians are doing 50 to 60 kilometres a day to get to and from work. Plug-in hybrid makes a lot of sense for them because when it's fully charged, you drive from home to work and back. You don't use any fuel. You plug it in again at night, do the same thing Monday to Friday, no petrol, but then on weekends, you've got to run around for sport and do all the other stuff that you do, family road trips. You've got a regular petrol engine as well.
Okay, so would you say plug-ins are more convenient?
I think they are, but you have to learn to change your behaviour. Drive.com.au, it's the place to go for all your research, news, reviews and comparisons on new cars. That's where you find out what you need to know, drive.com.au. Drive tomorrow, it's vitally important information. Doesn't matter what sort of car you're buying, doesn't matter who you're buying it for, and everything you need to know, not just about the cars that are behind us now, but about everything that we road test at Drive. It's over at drive.com.au. Okay, Holly, we're over to I guess, the top of the tree here in terms of evolution. And what's interesting is when we spoke about the cars that we had here, you said this is the one you'd pick, which I like. I think that's a really good choice because Kia EV6 is one of my favourite electric vehicles as well.
Yeah, would you say that electric engines have less components? Because this looks a lot less complicated than...
You should be doing my job, actually, with that question. Spot on. Electric vehicles, realistically, are intrinsically a lot more simple than a petrol or a diesel engine. There's less moving parts, less things to go wrong. The servicing requirements are different. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that at all. And what we also spoke about before, what I like about electric vehicles is it allows the design and the engineering teams to do all sorts of different things with the packaging and the style of the vehicle because you can move things around. So when we go back to looking at that Isuzu, it had to have a relatively hefty diesel engine up here at the front. If you've got an electric motor that's vastly smaller than that, you can move it all around the place to suit what works best for you. The other thing that is very different about these vehicles, clearly, and we talk about changing behaviour, there's no petrol tank. So as I said to you before, the best way to think about this is your battery pack is your petrol tank, your electric motors is your petrol or diesel engine. They're the equivalent, right? So what you have to do is you have to fill your petrol tank, which is actually your battery pack, right? So this needs to be plugged in, it needs to be charged.
So what would be the difference from driving an electric vehicle compared to a non?
What's with all these good questions? I think the easiest way I could describe it is that you sense everything that happens with an electric vehicle is happening sooner and more effortlessly. So with a regular vehicle, without boring you too much with the details, they take time to build up to their peak torque, peak power, and where they're making their most power. With an electric vehicle, it's immediate.
A Chinese brand has just re-entered the Australian market. They're known as Chery, and they've got a brand new large SUV. So let's take a look at the Chery Tiggo. If you haven't heard of Chinese car brand Chery as yet, I'm sure you will, but it's probably because they had a 7-year hiatus from the Australian market, but they've returned with a vengeance. At a time where cost of living has never been higher and SUVs have never been more popular in Australia, affordability is at the forefront, and they've already launched with 2 SUVs. Earlier this year, they brought in the Omoda 5, their small SUV, and they followed up with this. This here is the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro, a mid-size SUV. Probably one of its most appealing features is its price tag. But with that comes plenty of bells and whistles. This is packed with standard features, along with a full suite of standard safety technology, a long warranty, and lots of space, making it a great option for families. So first impressions in the cabin, the seats are pretty comfortable, synthetic leather, but there's a lot to take in, including the ambient lighting, which you can actually change to match the beat of your music, so that's pretty cool. But I think a lot of people do expect your things like your wireless charge pad, your Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, that has this, and it's wired as well. Taking a deeper look around, it doesn't really look like there's a lot of hard plastics. You won't really see that until you get further down on the doors and on the dash. And then of course you've got this big screen to work with here. One really cool feature is the 360-degree camera in this model, and it also has 3D view. So really handy when you're doing parking maneuvers or pulling into your driveway and need to see what's around you. I mentioned space a bit earlier, plenty up front as well. One really cool feature up here is that you've got a really big open compartment, which could probably fit my small bag. This is a touch screen, and then you've got climate controls that are touch as well, but they've still left some buttons and dials here too, so some shortcuts to make things a lot easier. And they've got a rotary dial here, which will change your drive modes, and it also has off-road modes as well. 2 really cool features that I found in this Chery is the ambient lighting. So once you play your music, you can actually match your ambient lighting to the beat of your song. Pretty smart. Something else that's pretty useful on the go is the Chery voice assistant. So let me show you. Hello, Chery.
Here.
Open the sunroof.
Okay.
Pretty quick. A lot of people your age, in a few years' time, will probably go out and get their first car, and it may be electric. What about you? What would you buy these days? Petrol, diesel, hybrid, all-electric car?
Yeah, I know obviously electric cars are coming up, a lot more of them, and they're becoming cheaper. But But I feel like with petrol engines, they're becoming a lot more advanced, a lot better fuel efficiency now. So I feel like there's obviously positives and negatives to petrol and electric. I know they make a lot of power. I've been in the EV6 before. Obviously they're still cool, but I think at the moment I'd still rather a petrol car.
Okay, Holly, we've jumped between my old car and these new cars a couple of times today. I'll tell you something that you did not talk about in 1984, which we're about to cover now, is technology. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, so with a lot of these cars, I'm noticing some sensor-like things. Do a lot of new cars these days have sensors like that to help with safety?
Okay, really good point. Let's start with safety because that falls under safety tech. There's layers to safety with these cars, right? There's the safety that you can see and the sensors you just mentioned, rear view camera, which comes up on the screen inside, and then there's all the other safety that you can't see. So you're absolutely right. The easiest way to find out whether your car has been crash tested is to go to the ANCAP website, which you can access via the drive tests that we do at the website, and that'll tell you what the ANCAP crash rating is. The safest cars are 5-star cars, so that's what we recommend that people buy. Safety tech goes though from sensors and cameras, and some of them even have a 360-degree view camera, so it looks like you're standing at top of the car looking down, which is really helpful when you're parking or reversing. Makes a big difference. But safety ranges from those to all sorts of other things, including the structural quality of the vehicle. So the way the vehicle's built, when it crashes into something, how does it respond? How does it hold together? And is it strong enough? But then there's all the other things under the surface. So there are electronic systems working while you're driving that you don't even realise that are there. There's blind spot monitoring, there's lane keeping assist, there's front and rear distance sensors in a lot of cars, rear cross traffic alert, emergency braking, all that sort of technology, which we look at and we list when we're road testing a car at drive. And then of course, there's all the hidden airbags in cars. So one of the new developments in airbags that's become quite common is the centre airbag. So that if you and I are sitting next to each other in the car, there's a side impact, prevents us from hitting our heads together because there's an airbag in the centre of the car.
Would that centre one be in a lot of these cars
That's
here?
right, yeah, a lot of new cars have a centre airbag. So not all of them, because that's new technology that's starting to emerge, but it's becoming more and more common. And I think safety technology is a huge thing for family buyers because we're putting our kids, we're putting our young people, we're putting elderly relatives in the car. We want the car to be as safe as possible. Don't forget, if you're watching this and you want to understand more about technology inside and outside the car, you'll find everything you need to know over at drive.com.au. Everything you need to know about your new car, it's over at Drive. Don't forget, you can research it and you can buy it over at drive.com.au. The next part of technology for me, which is what you've spoken about before and what you interact with the most, is the infotainment system in the car. Now, again, there's two levels to that. There's the infotainment system, which if you're a passenger, you can be fooling around with what the music is or what radio station it's on or the satellite navigation. But then there's also the technology and the infotainment and the screens when you're the driver, which tells you a lot. So you've noticed that in some of these cars, but is there anything particular that you've picked up on?
Yeah, I've just found it very interesting how the touchscreen is just so familiar and relates with phones so much and how it's becoming a lot more common in cars like this. I found that very interesting.
I think it's interesting because you understand how to use your phone, right? So you're looking at a screen that looks kind of familiar with your phone. And on that note, if you're an Apple user or an Android user, it doesn't really matter. Most of these new cars have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So to the point that you're making, either wirelessly or with a cable, you plug your smartphone in, and then the screen that you're looking at looks exactly like your phone. So I think that infotainment there really makes a difference to how you interact with your car. And you do think of it as something that you use in the same way that you use your smartphone. What I think you'll learn and you'll get a hold of as you start to drive is some of that interactivity and customization is then available when you're the driver. So some new cars, Kia were one of the first to really pioneer it. You put the blinker on and there's a little screen inside the driver's display that shows a camera of what's on the blind spot where you're turning, right, which is really handy. Even the fact that you can customise those gauges. You sit in my old Nissan and you've got 2 gauges and what we used to call idiot lights, because they're designed to show idiots what's gone wrong with their car. Most of these cars have a way of customising the gauge display so you can show your live fuel efficiency or those sorts of things, you know, so you'll learn that as you start driving.
Yeah, I find it very interesting how the screens are just so similar, and I guess as like someone who's starting like learning to drive, it makes like driving cars a lot more like less daunting, seeing something I'm more familiar with.
Do you sit in an old car like mine, like you did the other day, and just look at it and go, all this stuff is missing? Like what is not in here? Do you feel that way? Like, because if you get out of one of these cars, you've got screens everywhere and controls and switchgear. Do you sit in an old car as a young person and just go, what is this?
Yeah, I look at it and think, I don't think I'll be able to easily control this knowing what I know now. But I look at these cars and think, oh yeah, I could do this.
Do you like the idea that the car has less switches in it and more functionality through the touch screen? Or do you still like the idea of some switches?
Look, I reckon that some buttons are okay, because I feel like you always will need like at least some, but I do quite like that the screen
Clean
can
look.
just,
So what I'm understanding by what you've said there is you're okay with mechanical switches for things like windows maybe, or air conditioning on and off, but you're happy to interact with the screen for the main touchscreen. And the other point on that, just before you go on, is that even the most affordable vehicles here, something like this Chery behind us, it has that touchscreen functionality, right? So it doesn't matter what your budget is, you still get that interaction.
And what I've found very interesting and what can I imagine like helpful is the voice activation on this. So that's...
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And again, that ties into the smartphone functionality, right? So you can press a button when you've got your smartphone connected and say, hey Siri, can you do blah, blah, blah. But the fact you can say, hey Chery, and ask the car to do things for you as well, put the temperature down or whatever, I think that's quite technologically advanced as well. I think the key though, and we touched on this before, your generation, my generation kind of, like if you're between 40 and 50, it's like, yeah, I get it, but I still need to learn a little bit, right? Your generation, you're accustomed to this stuff, right? Because you just, as I said to you, you just pick up a phone, there's no instruction manual, you learn how to do it. You're accustomed to the way this stuff works. Do you, when I'm explaining that sort of thing there to you, like app-based connectivity, is that just like, oh yeah, that's easy, I can work that out, or is there anything daunting about it at all?
No, like I think with a couple of these screens I've seen in the car, it's got the home screen like a phone would, and it's so familiar and just a lot, like looks easier to manage than,
There we go, there's the knife in the heart of my old car again. The technology that's in these modern cars is genuinely astounding. Now, if you own a new or near new car, you're probably looking at something like this Hyundai Palisade and you're thinking, yep, I've seen it all before. But the majority of people watching this right now, and the majority of Australians, are in 5 to 10-year-old vehicles. If you're stepping out of one of them into something like the Hyundai Palisade, the tech inside this vehicle is a massive step forward from what you are used to. Let's start with the basics. This car doesn't have a gear shifter. It's got push buttons for your gear selection. So there's no gear shifter taking up space there in the center console. It's got heated and cooled front seats and a heated steering wheel. This is technology that was unheard of even a decade ago outside of the most expensive vehicles. Then it's got a really simple control level for the heating, ventilation and air conditioning. And of course, very simple controls on the steering wheel. That dimension there across the dashboard is where the major functionality of the car and the driving systems is controlled. You've got the infotainment system. Now down here you've got wireless charging. With the infotainment system up there, you have access to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And what that smartphone connectivity does is means you can bury your phone down here in the console, close the lid, hide it away, not be tempted to touch it, and access all of the functionality of your smartphone through the screen. When you connect your phone and you have that same display there, the way the system works is also the same. So it's the mapping software that you're familiar with. Finding and inputting addresses is so easy, much easier than when you had to learn a new system that might have been the native satellite navigation system in the car. This is the challenge for the modern manufacturer. Fit as much technology into the car as you can, across various price points too, because don't forget, even the most affordable vehicles that we've shown you here have this sort of technology in them. So fit as much of that in as you can, but perhaps most importantly, make it efficient, make it intuitive, make it easy to use. Drive.com.au, it's the place for you to go to do all your research on tech. If you want to understand anything that Holly and I have been talking about today, go to drive.com.au. Don't forget, there's a hell of a lot of research that you need to be doing when you're buying a new car. That's what Drive Tomorrow is about. It's about the next generation of vehicles and all of the technology that comes with it. Everything you need to know, not just about these vehicles that we're talking about here, but everything else that we road test at Drive, it's over at drive.com.au. These cars specifically, they really reflect pretty much what Australians are buying at the moment. We've gone SUV crazy here. Do you think, if you said to me, that particular car there is the one I like the most, so forget budgets and stuff for the moment. If I put two of them in front of you and they were otherwise identical, but one was electric and one was petrol or diesel, would you have a tendency to want the electric one? Would you not care? Have you even thought about that?
Well, I think before kind of learning a bit more about the electric, I would have just gone towards the petrol or diesel one because it's just kind of more what I knew about. But now after hearing about electric cars and a bit more about them, I think I'd maybe steer towards that direction.
Is there one that stands out to you that you go, yeah, if I was buying a car right now, that's probably the one I'd buy?
I think at the moment it would be maybe the Kia electric, but I think at initial glance, the Mercedes was definitely what caught my attention. I really actually like just the overall size of the Kia. I like how it's shaped, and a lot of the technological aspects of it are like, I think, drawing me.
This is one of my favourite interiors, actually, the Kia EV6. What do you think about it?
I definitely think it's cool, very unique with the whole space under the centre console. Very spacious in here as well.
Yeah, you know what? This is a ground-up EV, right? So it gave the engineers, the designers, a lot of freedom with getting rid of those tunnels. The batteries are underneath, so you'll notice the rear is completely flat on the floor. And as you said, heaps of space here too. What do we think about the climate control being touch?
Yeah, I think for someone new to it might be hard to get used to, but pretty fast you get used to it. But the rotor wheel's pretty cool as well, to change gears.
So you mentioned the space, something else cool in here that everyone wants and needs, charging pad, does it work? It works. One thing I want to know from you, I know you love your engine, I know you love your Maserati, but this is pretty edgy and cool on the inside. Does it make an electric vehicle a bit more appealing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's right behind the Maserati and what I'd pick, even though it's electric.
Interesting. All right, so we're in Holly's favourite, the Mercedes-Benz GLC. I already know that you like this, don't you?
Yeah, I like it, yeah.
What do we like? What stands out?
Oh, I think the wood here is pretty cool. I like that addition, the big screen. You can change your seats pretty easily, so like swipe forward and back.
I'm interested to know what you think about the gears being on the stalk.
Yeah, I think it's definitely weird. Obviously some cars have blinkers there, so you could easily make a mistake and use it as a blinker. Something
to get used to, but I'm going to tell you now. I had that mistake before. But the screen, yeah, I think the screen is very impactful, like in most Mercedes-Benz, and great technology. Really like all the finishes, you know, all the silver on the air vent. The presentation in here is really spot on. And you know what? A lot of space too. Like there's a lot of compartments everywhere and in the doors, just lots of areas to put bits and bobs.
Yeah, definitely looks luxury in here.
I'll thought to mix things up, we jump into the second row. We're in the Hyundai Palisade. Now this can be optioned as a 7-seater where you'd have captain's chairs back here. I've tried them, they're very comfortable. But with the 8-seater, you know what? You look pretty comfy yourself.
Yeah, definitely comfy in here. Looks like something a celebrity would drive.
Yeah, it does almost. It's actually a good point because you can do this and just hide from the outside world as well with your sunblinds in the second row. Anything else that stands out to you?
I like the dark, obviously. Dark in the day is definitely good when it's on sunny days. Got the sunroofs and stuff like that. Aircon control.
And the space as well.
Yeah,
Let's
definitely.
test this out because that's a lot of room for my legs. Head too.
Yep.
Even with the bun.
Yep.
What about the front? I know that you're big on your gear levers.
Yep.
What do you think of the buttons in the Hyundai?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Easy to find in some of the other cars. Yeah, it still looks pretty cool though.
Something else that's really cool in here that you might want to have a play with, it's called passenger talk. So you've got a really rowdy cabin, lots of people in the back, all the way back there. The driver can contact you via, obviously, a speaker that alerts to the passengers back here, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, don't let my dad hear about that. Never hear end of it.
That's true.
Drive tomorrow. It's vitally important information. Doesn't matter what sort of car you're buying. Doesn't matter who you're buying it for, and everything you need to know, not just about the cars that are behind us now, but about everything that we road test at Drive. It's over at drive.com.au. Don't forget, there's a hell of a lot of research that you need to be doing when you're buying a new car. That's what Drive Tomorrow is about. It's about the next generation of vehicles and all of the technology that comes with it. Everything you need to know, not just about these vehicles that we're talking about here, but everything else that we road test at Drive. It's over at drive.com.au.
The Maserati Grecale exudes luxury. There's no doubt in saying that this is a head-turner. It's sophisticated, stylish, I mean, just look at it. Not only that, but it also brings Maserati's new technology, has good interior space, a class-leading boot and excellent ride quality. This one here is the flagship Trofeo, which brings added features along with a supercar engine. Underneath the bonnet lies that MC20 engine, a 3-litre twin-turbo V6. So performance, space, comfort, all wrapped up in a pretty bow. Perfect for those who want to make a statement, splash a little bit of extra cash, or for families that just want to ride in style. So Nate, welcome to the cabin of your future car. I know how much you like it, but yeah, it's pretty impressive inside here, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the carbon features, big screen, paddle shifts.
Question for you though, we've noticed that there's a lot in this screen. How do you feel about the positioning of the gears?
Yeah, I definitely noticed when you get in, it's hard to get it into gear. May not be able to find it. Obviously a lot different to the other cars with the gear shifts, but...
Did you find the start-stop button?
No, not at the start, but then I found it a bit.
Yeah, it's on the steering wheel for everyone that wants to know. One other thing that a lot of brands are doing now, just getting rid of traditional door handles. Have you noticed that this is a pop?
Yeah, I couldn't get out before, so it's a button now. So
Good to know for everyone that's jumping into Maserati. But yeah, it feels premium in here, doesn't it? Like all this leather and, as you said, the carbon, just really beautiful features. From one end of the spectrum to the other, this here is the Mahindra XUV 700, and it's currently the most affordable 7-seat SUV in Australia. The Indian brand is seeking to emerge from its niche positioning to take on the mainstream. Not long after launching the Scorpio, they've come in with this medium SUV. Now, as they are tackling one of the most saturated segments in Australia, they've come in strong. It looks pretty cool, is well packaged, has lots of space, and all with a bargain drive-away price. Okay, so the Mahindra, first impressions?
I like the big screen. It's a good big screen.
Yep.
I like how it has a gear knob.
Like a standard, traditional gear lever. Nothing rotary dial, no presses anywhere, just old school.
Yeah, good buttons. Obviously, some of the other cars just have touchscreen, so it actually has buttons.
Yeah, fair point. Like shortcuts there, and even this here, this rotary dial.
Yep.
Oh, hello, music. And what about the seat? Do you think it's comfortable? So you've got your seating adjustment there. It kind of comes from a Mercedes where you do the adjustment on the side, but at least it's electric.
Yeah, I like the seats. Nice colour, I guess.
Yeah, and would you keep this clean though?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if I would.
Yeah. I don't really know about the hard plastic.
Yeah, there's a few hard plastics around, you're right. At least up here, this feels, you know, a little bit better, a little soft. This as well.
Yep.
Something else about this car is obviously it's a 7-seater, so I think what we should do is get you in the back and see how much room there actually is in the third row.
Well, Em, the cars behind us, they're the stars of the show, not you and I. So we need to forget all about that. The cars are very much the star of the show, and we've got something for everyone, really, from one end of the spectrum to the other. But it's fair to say, every year at Drive, we test hundreds of cars in different specification grades. So head to drive.com.au if you want to know anything about cars that we haven't covered in this special. However, I've been really interested to speak to the next generation of drivers, find out a little bit about what they're thinking, and we learned some interesting stuff, didn't we?
We did, and some surprises as well, Trent. I have to say, with this younger generation, I immediately thought they'd go straight to style and what a car looked like. That wasn't the case. One of the big things for them was comfort. Thankfully, safety, very important for them. And another thing that I found really interesting is that they weren't jumping at the idea of electric vehicles, sort of like you and I. We love our engines. They like their engines as well. But that is, you know, in 5-10 years' time, this is a generation that's probably going to have a major uptake in electric vehicles.
Really interesting point that you make there. If you look at these cars behind us, they just look like cars, right? You're not looking at them specifically looking at what's underneath them. When we talk about powertrains, there's so many, and we said this at the start of the show, there's so many different powertrains now that I think a resource like Drive, and that's why we say go to drive.com.au, is really important when you're doing your research phase, because not everybody understands every powertrain.
Exactly. What's a mild hybrid? A lot of people are still asking me those questions to this day. What does a plug-in hybrid, how does that differ to a hybrid? So there is a lot to learn, and as you said, you can find all of those details over at drive.com.au. For now, I think it's almost time for us to actually have a holiday and a break.
Yeah, that's right. On that point, if you've watched Drive tomorrow and you're about to head out on a family road trip, please drive safely. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again very soon on Drive TV. Are you ready to buy your next new vehicle? Well, the team at Drive can help you out. We have reviewed and driven all the new cars on sale in Australia at the moment to help you make a smart choice and buy the right new car for you. We've got cars for sale right now from reputable dealers over at drive.com.au. And of course, if you're ready to sell your car, we can help you with that too. Everything you need to know about buying or selling your car, it's over at drive.com.au.